What happens when the people sworn to uphold the law create the crime? Or when the people sworn to protect us become the architects of crime? When law enforcement stops catching criminals and starts creating them? Welcome to Entrapped, the podcast that dives into one of the most controversial corners of American justice, government entrapment. This is Entrapped with Tom Hamner.
Welcome to Entrapped. This is Tom Hamner. We have a special guest today, Hank Muntzer, out of Dillon, Montana. I happen to be on the phone with him right now. Hank, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
What are you doing up in Dillon, Montana?
Well, I do a lot of things. I have my own business. I do appliance repair, gold mining, bunch of things. And right now, I'm helping as many January Sixers as I can to get back on their feet.
Fantastic, man. That's glorious. Let me ask you a couple questions, Hank. With January 6th and everything that was going on, a lot of people assumed that many of us were affiliated with other groups or militias and things like that. What did you have any affiliation with any of those groups before you went to January 6th?
I had no affiliations with any group. Um, although, the good part about groups is we can learn in groups and how to respond to events. But the biggest thing that we've learned over time, and this is why I warn people about groups and organizations, is that you'll have people from the CIA or the FBI infiltrate those groups, and they tend to bring them down, which is also what you see with Proud Boys and many other people. There's infiltrators within every organization. So my recommendation to anyone is never form a group, get together, learn constitutional principles, learn good values of how to operate under the Constitution, and live by those principles and show up not because there's a ringleader organizing any event, but as an individual showing up because it's based upon principles and it's a good idea. And a good example of that is, it's just where you've seen Antifa operate or anyone else. When you surround the police, they win. What we need to do as individuals, when they surround us, we surround them and we hold them accountable and hold them to a standard of law and principles that are guided by the Constitution, so they can't just kick our doors in and do whatever they would normally be able to do, as they did with January 6th. And I'm one of the few people they didn't kick the door in or cause any problems with, because they were too afraid, because they knew that if they had kicked my door in, they would have, tried to do the things like did most people, with flashbangs and, suppressors and all that. None of them would have left the property alive. I was treated very, very well because they knew I would not succumb to things like that. They asked me to surrender. I'm happy to do so, but I also will not give up my ability to defend myself. And just because you have a badge or a gun, you're not above the law. So I
True.
think in that aspect, they were very afraid of me for many reasons. But because of that, we also see, and not just in my case, but in other people that it can be considered very dangerous. They won't do those type of things in order to create shock and awe for the public, and so that kind of sets me apart from other people because I don't play their game. I live by
Right, right.
principles and I hold them accountable. And so in this whole ordeal, I
Absolutely.
was one of the few people that's treated really well by the police and by the FBI. And I want to thank them for doing that, because it wouldn't have ended well for them. But on the other hand, I'm not the guy that would take the battle to them, but I'm definitely happy to end it if they start it.
Well, that's nice to hear, man. There's a lot of people that feel the same way as you. Let me ask you, as far as your role in January 6th, I would imagine you had a lot of the same roles as the rest of us. You were a participant, standing up for your rights. You were an observer. You've become somewhat of a reporter, then and now. You definitely had, you were a defendant at some point in time. So, with all of that being said, what do you feel the biggest part of your role in this was? What affected you the most? Was it your participation? Was it the fact that you were trying to defend yourself to not go to jail or not suffer any consequences? Um, what is it you feel your role was at January 6th, and how did that end for you?
Well, it's hard to explain my role because, for me, I just felt like I was led by God to be there. So I'm the guy that, put the thing in the paper, said, I'd pay for as many people to go January 6th that wanted to go. And
So wait a minute. So you put an article together in Dillon, Montana, inviting people to attend with you.
correct. And I got 9 people there. Then they called me the ringleader. They got 2 million people there. And I laughed. I said, well, that'd be a great honor, but I only got 9 people. I can
So
lead
I
the
think
rest
I
of the
left
company.
out a role when I was naming these off. Apparently, you are much more than a participant. You're a bona fide leader. If you're willing to do something like that, to gather the people together to show the strength and unity, that is what a leader does. So, moving on, where were you on January 6th, 2021?
So, what happened is we got a group of 9 of us to go, and we sent 2 individuals out of the 9 to go there early, and so they kind of found a place to stay for us, which was a home, and they kind of had the layout of the land, where we were going to go. I had no idea where we were going or what was happening. I just knew we were there for Stop the Steal. And at that time, when we first booked the tickets, we didn't even know Trump was going to speak. And then later on, we
Yeah.
found out that he was going to speak, which was very exciting. So basically, we arrived that evening and we had to be up early. So we got up like at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that to get in line. It's just a monumental amount of people. I had no idea where I was.
Yes.
We assembled at the Ellipse. And I had no idea where the Capitol building was. That all happened after Trump said to go peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, which is what we did. And
That's right.
then they let us into the Capitol after that. So from my point of view, everything I saw was very peaceful. I didn't see all the damage that was created or the people getting pummeled like happened in the lower chamber and stuff. I was above the inaugural stage, and so from my point of view, it was like uh, they just let us in. It's just like we were like tourists, and
Yeah.
then I was beaten by 2 officers, which I sent you one of them, which they tried to keep um, from the public seeing because I got my last attorney. I went through 3 attorneys and 6 judges. My last attorney, I nailed him for basically malpractice. We dumped all my files because I asked him why he'd want me to go to a stipulated bench trial when he goes against all my wishes. He couldn't answer any of the questions,
Yeah.
so he bailed. And so he gave me all the files, which at that point were able to release the file of me being assaulted. So I had Tommy Tatum release that because when he released it, everyone had access to the files. So it wasn't like me disclosing it. So Tommy put together that file of me being assaulted, which was great. Shook up the judge, shook up the whole courtroom proceedings. And then your attorneys always tell you to be silent, don't talk to the press, don't do this. I was literally going and doing a press briefing just like 5 or 20 minutes before I walked into the courtroom, and they had shut down the whole courtroom proceeding to figure out what I said. So that's how I, kind of went after him. And then when it was all
Right.
said and done, even my attorney said that I was right on everything. But it's very difficult because they threaten you with all kinds of charges that are bogus, and you got to live by principles. And this is what I told all the January Sixers. A lot of people are very offended by me saying it, but I said if we would have all stood up and fight, I really believe this battle would have been over 2 years ago. We could have had the appeals done. We obviously had the 1512 thrown out. We could have got the other ones thrown out as well, but it takes a certain
Hmm.
amount of time to go through the process. But because everyone plea bargained, they established case law, which is British rule. This isn't constitutional law. This is British rule. They
Yep.
established case law, and because of case law, they could prosecute the rest of us not based upon real principles. So until you override the lower courts and go to the higher courts to get your remedy, and then I'm not saying just because you have a good proceeding, just because you know the law, you're going to get a remedy. That is not necessarily true, because we're dealing with a corrupt system. But what I am saying is we can allow the judicial system to operate in such a way that it forces the evidence into the forefront if
Yeah.
one of the branches, and this happens to be the Constitution, which you got to understand, the only people that swore an oath to the bar are the people in the Supreme Court. So until it's overridden by them, you don't get your how would I say your due time in court to bring the evidence forward. Now, having said that,
Yeah. Your
even
due
if
process.
correct, now even if they don't rule correctly, eventually this means that we're going to end up with a military occupation, because at some point the military is going to step in, because if all branches of the government fail to do their job, then the military has the ability to conduct business to protect the states. And obviously, if all the branches of government aren't operating correctly, that's what the military is set up to do. Now, I've always said this
Right.
will end in a military occupation by one of two ways. And I believe in the Q posts, because it's a military operation. And when I say it ends in two ways, it's either the Supreme Court does their job, which forces the military in, or the Supreme Court fails to do their job, which forces the military. But either way, the military is going to have to step in, because what we have is a corrupt judicial system that won't hold people accountable, and the only people that can do that would be military tribunals, and that's eventually where this
Right.
is ultimately heading, if you understand the pattern
That's
that's
true.
going on.
And that's exactly what this was designed to do, was to punish the people that sold out our country, because that is the worst, that is the worst deceit ever. Um, so you attended the Capitol rally, and then you went to the Capitol. Did you ever enter the building itself? So you were on the grounds, and then from the grounds, where did you end up?
So I guess I should back up a little bit so you understand the chain of events. Even though I've told my story many times, I know there's always new people that haven't heard my story.
Yes,
So
sir.
basically, Trump basically told us to go to the Capitol. So we went there peacefully and patriotic. We marched down Pennsylvania Avenue. And so when we get to the Capitol building, the Capitol building is surrounded by so many people you couldn't even see the grass that was around the Capitol. The only reason I know there's grass there is because I went back there for my trial and it didn't even look the same. But there was a sea of people everywhere. And I know
Yes,
that I
sir.
walked on a sidewalk the whole way because I wasn't on any grass, because I would have noticed the grass. I did see a couple people when we got there putting on helmet and goggles, and I thought that was odd, but it didn't register in my brain because of the excitement of all the people. You're just caught up in all that. So we started working our way into the crowd, and down the stairway. I don't know if they came from the staircation or from the inaugural stage. Two women came down and said the Capitol Police were shooting tear gas and they're using pepper spray. And we could hear the booms in the background, but it was so noisy you couldn't really make out what it was. That's when I
Right.
realized it was tear gas. So like a bunch of patriots, we all go, "Wow, we got to see what's going on." So we had a 10-year-old kid with us as well, and we kind of had to leave him behind with one of my friends. He had a hip problem, so he stayed down below with him. Did I lose you for a second?
Nope, we're right here.
Okay, so one was to go up the staircasing to the left, which goes up to the top of the Capitol. The other one was
Mhm.
staircasing to the right, which goes to the inaugural stage. And that was the only one that's free that I could get up. So two of us went up there. I didn't know at the time the other guy followed me because he was behind me. So I get up to the top of to the inaugural stage, and that's where there was a couple of guards there with shields, and all these guys with helmet and goggles were pushing against the guards. And so they waved me in, like, come in behind us. So I kind of get behind them a little bit, and then the Capitol Police are shooting pepper spray my way, and I'm thinking, what is
Yeah.
this all about? So I back up, I get on the scaffolding. My goal was to see what was going on, try to understand the dynamics of what was happening here, because I couldn't wrap my brain around what I'm seeing. And so I get into the scaffolding. I look up. There's like 500 people on the scaffolding. I thought I was going to collapse on my head, and I was thinking, man, I got to get to a better vantage point. I got to get up.
Yeah. And I was witness to the amount of people on that scaffold. It was I thought the same thing. Go ahead and continue.
So what I did is I looked around, and there's people up above. It's not like I was in any restricted areas or anything. And there's a footwall there, and it was about maybe up to my waist or maybe a little higher. So I just leaped over that wall and got up on the bleachers. And people started going around the guards that were up there, but I wasn't going to get near the guards when they're shooting pepper spray. It just didn't make any sense. So I got up
No.
above them, get to the top of not to the top of the bleachers, but the lower part of the top of the bleachers. So you're looking directly over the inaugural stage, like a little wall I was standing on. And so then I get up there. I said, we just stormed the Capitol, made it through tear gas and pepper spray. And I posted this on my Facebook page. The next thing you know, I'm on HBO. I'm on every news broadcast you could possibly think of because they spread that far and wide as their talking points. So,
That's what
anyhow,
they do.
I go from there and I head up to the top of the bleachers because at this point they're shooting the tear gas into the crowd down below and it's blowing up, towards me, and it's choking you out. So I hike to the top and here's reporters next to me and everything else, and I'm standing up there at the top of the bleachers, and there's a doorway that goes in behind the inaugural stage that they just opened up, waved us into. So they go, oh, they're waving us into the Capitol. So my phone is going dead, so I'm turning it on for a little bit, turning it off. So I turn my phone on, I turn it around, I show that they're letting us into the Capitol. They're letting us into the Capitol, and I was just all excited,
Yeah.
and so we slowly worked our way down the staircasing, got in line, single file like everyone else. It's not like there's a pile of people pushing, or we just walked in just like normal people, and walked in.
You
Then they
wait a minute.
said,
Oh, you back up real quick. So you walked into the Capitol with no resistance. Nobody told you not to. Nobody tried to stop you. Nobody tried to restrain you.
no, not at all. Matter of fact, even in my minutes when we in the courtroom, the guards just let us in. They just walked, and they said, "Well, it's because Ashley Babbitt was shot and all that." Well, that is untrue because the time when Ashley Babbitt was shot was before. I'm sorry, was after they had already let us in through the doorway. So that didn't even happen yet. The minutes, I mean, it was like 4 more minutes before that happened. So anyhow, they let
Right.
us in and they retreated, but these excuse, and they said, well, the alarms were blaring. And there's like an alarm. So they have a camera. I guess where the cameras let you in the door, there's like an alarm you can hear going woo, 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 or whatever it's doing. I did not hear it when I entered the building. There is so much noise. I mean, you couldn't hear anything, but obviously you could
Yeah,
hear
it
it in
was
the
deafening that
microphones
day.
because of the
Hmm.
camera was probably there where that speaker was. So they tried to use that as
Yeah.
saying you should have known not to be in there because these alarms are going off. But I've been in buildings. I do a lot of work in commercial buildings, and if any time opens the door, alarms go off. Alarm doesn't always mean anything. I mean, this is a pretty nonchalant situation. It's not like anyone's saying there's a fire, get out of the building. You know, yeah, they're just letting us in. So we get into the
Yeah.
building there, and I'm going to the first rotunda room, and there was women and other people are sitting on benches, and they're just like a normal day, and I'm walking in there, and we're going our house, USA, USA.
Yeah.
And so we go from the main rotunda room, and we kind of turn a corner, and we go to this little room. There's like a staircasing, like it goes down different levels you can see down. And we walk around that staircase and walk into like a square room. And then there's a big flag there. And they said that's where it goes to the Senate chambers or something like that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know my way around the Capitol. I've never been into that part of the Capitol before. I don't even know where that goes. But yeah, we're standing there in front of this flag, and these guards were right there. And then I worked my way up to the front where the guards were and just standing there. And next thing you know, it's like they get an order to pepper spray us. So they emptied a whole can of pepper spray in my face. And I'm just standing there going, what is happening here?
How
So,
many people do you think were there with you when you were assaulted with the pepper spray?
I want to say there was probably 1,000 people in that building, but I could be off on that. But, there was 400 to 600 people when I came into the building is what it looked like to me. So there was a lot of
So
people.
you were in a big room when they decided to assault you with the chemical agents.
No, I was in the smaller chamber heading towards, I guess, the Senate is what that's what they claim in the minutes, in the court proceedings, that I was facing towards the
Right.
Senate chamber. Now I don't know where that goes. I don't know if there's more turns or if we're even close to it. You know how the whole argument is. They say it's like a maze. You
Yeah.
can't find your way around through the Capitol. What that looks like or where that is,
Right.
I have no idea. I still to this day do not know. All I know
I
is
couldn't tell you either.
yeah, all I know is I got layered with a bunch of pepper spray in my face, and I had a hat on, so I tilted my head down so it wouldn't go directly into my eyes. But yeah, they covered me in pepper spray, and I kind of looked at him. I thought
Yeah.
they probably thought at that point, "What is wrong with this guy? He's just covered in pepper spray, and he's just looking at us like, what just happened?" So then
Yeah. Yeah.
so then I work my way back to the main room. I'm thinking, oh, what a mess. And then when we get back to the main room, the doorway I came in, I couldn't get out of, and I tried to go out that way, and they had guards in there, and we're basically locked in the building. We could not leave. So then they got all the police, or well, they had both Capitol Police as well as regular police there. And the reason why I found
Yes.
out is the black ones didn't have cameras on, the Capitol Police, and the other ones did. And so they started doing a mosh pit and started pushing us around, and we couldn't get out of the building. And the one door that we were supposed to exit was opposite the door I came in. I didn't know at that time. And then, like in the court proceedings, they showed the exit signs above you. It's like, you should know where the exit is. Well, there's exits all around me, but they're all blocked off. That doesn't tell me how to get out of the building. And then when I finally figured out where we were supposed to exit the building because they're pushing us out of, people are pushing in through the main door. So then I tell the guards, I said, he said, you got to get someone over there to open up the door because we can't get out. We're getting smashed. There's women falling down behind me. I'm picking them up. I'm holding on to my backpack, because it's falling off my back. It has all my stuff in it, and my hands were, wrapped, hanging onto the backpack the whole time. So anyhow, I have these two guards pushing against me. One was a tall black guy, and one was a short black lady. And they were pushing me with the shields, and the tall black guy kept hitting me with his baton, just poking me with it. And so he kept doing that. And finally, I said, "If you hit me one more time, I'm going to throw you through that wall." I don't think I used that words, but I was pretty firm about I wasn't going to put up with it no more. And I said, "Sorry, ma'am." Apologized to her. She smiled, and he no longer hit me anymore. And so then I'm tell them they need to get people to the door to get us out. So eventually they did, and one of the officers, got the doorway unblocked so we could start walking out of the building. So we start walking out, and I mean we weren't all smashed together at that point. And then that's when my recording is. It shows me walking out of the building. As soon as I start going out of the building, then the crowd pushes back on me. And I remember getting hit over the head and across the face, but I thought I got hit by a flag or something. I didn't know what it was. I put my hands up. Come to find out, it was a guard that clubbed me for no reason, and I didn't know it was an officer. So through discovery, I found out that I was assaulted. And then they tried to cover their tracks and said I tried to grab a baton from an officer. I'm like, what are they talking about? I have no idea. So in the process, looking through the videos, that's when I found the fact that they assaulted me. So I was assaulted by two officers and did nothing wrong. And so then
Yeah.
after I exited the building, then they poured water on me because they said, you got pepper spray all over your face or whatever they were using. And as soon as they poured water on me, then it really started to burn. And then right after that, I kind of migrated my way around the building, going back to the inaugural stage where I came up. So I circled around the building. On the way around, I said hi to one of the guards and did a fist bump. He wouldn't shake my hand, said thank you for, doing what you're doing. And then we get back to our apartment that evening, and then I see the news. And people are calling us. They go, what are you doing? What's happening over in D.C.? I said, what do you mean? So to my surprise, I turn the news on. It looks like the Capitol's on fire. People are dying. Then I hear that all these officers, are dead and all this stuff's going on. And then, as we find out later, that's not what happened at all. Four
Nope.
January Sixers died that day, but not one officer. So they set the narrative. I mean, when I saw the TV, I thought, what did we miss? And you got to understand, it took
Right.
me like 2 to 3 years later to understand all these facts because I didn't know. From my point of view, it
Yeah.
was very peaceful. And I didn't know the stories of individuals. So I kept an open mind. I mean, officers could have got hurt. I mean, we didn't know who started it, what was going on. And when you find out that the officers started this whole thing and started shooting munitions at people that were doing absolutely nothing wrong, That's what caused the crowd to erupt. Yeah, if I was down in the
So
lower area,
the real terrorists in this whole thing were the police officers and the politicians and all the people we now know played the certain roles in all of this. I want to back up real quick because you said something really interesting. You said that they mentioned you should have known where the exits were because of the exit signs. Um, with that being said, when they showed the video of the exit signs, did they show the crowd in the video or the evidence when they presented that in court? And was it very obvious that people were confused in what they were doing and how they were being moved around with direction to doors that they couldn't exit, exits that they couldn't find, things of that nature?
well, from my point of view, one, you couldn't see it. Two, it wouldn't have mattered because they were blocked off. But what they did is they
Right.
used cameras from a bird's eye view, what's way up high. They might be 20 feet in the air, and you can see the exit sign.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's not even a
Exactly.
fair comparison, and it's really bogus on its face because the bottom line is I should have been able to exit the exit I came in through. How come I couldn't exit there?
I would agree.
And
I
how
would
come I
agree.
wasn't directed as to where to go? Why don't single file please leave the building? Everyone would have done it. And according to DC law, this is where they're in violation of so many principles. And according to DC law, they got announced from the front of the crowd to the back of the crowd 3 times before they're allowed to use any kind of deadly force, whether it's pepper spray or anything else. That is a requirement
Yes,
under law.
sir.
Everyone has to know. None of those procedures were followed. Now, I don't want to
Not at all.
I don't want to put the Capitol Police in the bad light. I don't put the police in the bad light because I support, law enforcement. Here's where I have a problem, though. We were all brought into a trap. I believe that there was good people that were police officers or good people or Capitol Police that were put in a very bad situation because of chain of command, and they had no idea what was going on, and they were trying to follow whatever orders they thought they could follow and try to keep
Yep.
control of the situation. But the control of the situation was created by those at the top that created this incident in the first place and created the trap. I mean, you even had Nancy Pelosi and her crew in there, her daughter that was filming the whole thing, and it was in the same area I was in. I didn't know about that till later. They were filming, and they may
Mm-hmm.
have been one of the people up on the top of the balcony where I was when we entered in. For all I know, I don't know who all was there, but I know there's reporters there and everything else. But here's what happened: any reporter that played the narrative didn't get in trouble. Any reporter that reported the truth, they wouldn't allow
Yes,
those
sir.
reporters to charge them with January 6th. So what you're seeing is a narrative. It's not based upon anything that's real or tangible or follows any rule of law. We're just talking about
That's right.
people with an agenda. And so, as I was saying with the people down below, if I was one of those people and I would have saw people getting shot, and even in my situation, if I'd have known I was assaulted by an officer intentionally, it might have ended differently. We might have actually had a dead officer that day. If I would have saw people down below, shooting people indiscriminately the way they did, I would have jumped up on that balcony and taken that officer out. That's just the way I feel. And as individuals who understand liberties and freedoms, no one's above the law, even if you have a badge or a gun, and I'll hold them accountable. I even
That's
said it
true.
to the judge on the stand. I said, I'm the type of guy, I see 20 people beating someone up in an alley, I'll go rescue them, take them all out. I see an officer getting the heck beat out of him, I'll go rescue the officer. But I see an officer beating the heck out of someone, I said, I'll take him out. He's not above the law. And so everyone
That's right.
knows where I stand, and I tell it the way it is. I mean, I don't put up with that. And in Montana, we don't have crime, we don't have theft, we don't have problems. We leave our doors unlocked. Why? Because we don't play these
Because we
games.
shoot and then ask questions in Montana.
That's what we say. But
I
although,
grew up in a little town, Victor, Montana, so I'm very familiar with how the laws are upheld by the citizens if the police aren't around.
well, they are. And the thing is we a lot of times have to do the work for the police because the police don't know what to do
That's
many
true.
times. They don't have the facts. They got to
January
look at.
6th is the evidence of police not knowing what to do, not having the proper training, not knowing how to take charge and turn a situation. It was very unfortunate that those police officers, who are probably a lot of very good men, they were put in a terrible position. I I would have to say that the whole event was something that the government's response to all of this has impacted all of our lives, our careers, our freedom, our reputation, um, and the ramifications are for years to come. We are going to feel the effects of this. In your opinion, Hank,